Low testosterone? This is killing your performance, and most men don't even know it. You probably think low T means trouble in the bedroom and little else. That's the headline people joke about. But here's the inconvenient truth. If your testosterone is lower than it should be for you, it can quietly sabotage the thing that matters most in the long run, your ability to show up, execute, and move forward in work, training, and life. I'm going to give you 5 concrete ways low testosterone can wreck daily performance, explain why each one matters, tell you what to watch for, and show practical, evidence-aligned steps you can take today, safely. If you want more evidence-based health breakdowns, hit subscribe and stick around. Let's frame this first. Low testosterone is not rare. Large-scale surveys and clinic data indicate a meaningful number of adult men have lower than expected testosterone as they age or because of medical and lifestyle factors. Reputable sources like the Endocrine Society and patient-facing summaries from places such as the Mayo Clinic are good places to start if you want the official take. But the clinical nuance is important. Symptoms matter as much as lab numbers, and the right steps are to test, interpret results with a clinician, and try evidence-supported lifestyle changes before jumping to any treatment. I'm not a doctor, I read the studies, I translate them, and I give you practical steps. But for anything medical, check with your clinician. Here are the 5 ways low testosterone may be killing your performance, and what to do about each. 1. Energy and recovery. You wake up tired, and it never stops. If your days feel like wading through molasses, that's not just bad mornings. Low testosterone can blunt your baseline energy and slow recovery after stress or workouts. Testosterone plays a role in metabolic energy, how your muscles recover, and even how you cycle through sleep stages. When it's low, everything you do feels heavier. You finish a task and feel like you just ran a sprint. You exercise and it takes twice as long to bounce back. Momentum dies. Mechanism in plain English. Think of testosterone as part of your body's accelerator and repair crew. When levels are down, your energy output is lower, and the repair processes that help you recover from exertion are less efficient. That means workdays feel longer and hard training creates longer setbacks. Anecdote. I coached a friend, let's call him Mark, who ran his own landscaping business. He used to be the guy who could work sunrise to sunset, keep clients happy, and still hit the gym. Over a year, his mornings became brutal. He cut work hours, canceled jobs, and felt guilty for underperforming. He called himself lazy. After pushing to get checked, his doctor found his testosterone was lower than expected for him. They investigated causes, fixed his sleep and alcohol habits, and after treatment under supervision, he reported energy that felt like someone turned the lights back on. He didn't become superhuman overnight, but he regained momentum, finished more jobs, and even launched a small weekend side project he'd shelved. Practical implication and quick tip. If you're dragging most days, try a short experiment before assuming biology is the only cause. Prioritize consistent sleep, aim for a regular schedule and adequate duration, cut late-night alcohol, and test. If those changes don't help, ask your clinician for a morning testosterone test and a conversation about contributing factors. Don't diagnose yourself by how you feel alone, but don't dismiss persistent low energy either. 2. Strength and body composition. The physical presence you rely on to perform. Testosterone is a key hormone in maintaining lean mass and influencing fat distribution. Lower levels are associated with reduced muscle mass and increased fat mass. That's not vanity. Muscle and body composition matter for strength, endurance, injury resilience, and even how you're perceived in social and professional situations. If you used to be the guy who walked into a meeting or gym feeling steady and capable, losing that edge can erode confidence and performance in non-physical ways too. Mechanism in plain English. Testosterone helps promote muscle protein synthesis and supports the metabolic environment favorable to preserving muscle. When it falls, building and keeping muscle becomes harder, and you can lose the physical leverage that made movement and manual work easier. Anecdote. A former teammate, Evan, was the soft-spoken guy whose presence changed when he added regular strength work and addressed his lifestyle. But before that change, he'd noticed clothes fit differently, he had less strength at work, and he felt invisible. He assumed it was just aging. When he got checked, his physician found lifestyle-related contributors: excess weight, inconsistent sleep, and heavy weekend drinking. With targeted resistance training, consistent sleep, and a plan to lose some body fat, he rebuilt much of his strength. The surprising part? His colleagues and clients began treating him differently, more decisive, more capable, and that fed back into better opportunities. Practical implication and immediate tip. If strength and body composition are slipping, prioritize resistance training and protein intake, and address sleep and weight. These moves both raise the odds your testosterone will improve and directly boost your physical performance regardless of hormone changes. 3. Cognitive clarity and decision-making. The fog that stops action. This one hits hard because it's subtle. You might not notice testosterone's influence on cognition and motivation until decisions take longer, priorities blur, and you find yourself stuck in analysis paralysis.
Low testosterone has been associated with cognitive complaints, reduced concentration, slower processing, and a tendency to withdraw from mentally demanding tasks. The result? Tasks multiply, hesitation increases, and your productive days shrink. Mechanism in plain English. Hormones support brain circuits involved in focus, reward, and persistence. When a hormonal signal weakens, motivation for effortful thinking and risk-taking can decline. You can get mentally stuck, which then feeds back into worse outcomes, less action, fewer wins, less confidence to act next time. Anecdote. I once interviewed a software developer who suddenly found meetings overwhelming and decisions that used to take minutes, now taking days. He was brilliant, but he started missing project deadlines. He thought he'd lost his edge. After working with a physician and addressing a combination of sleep apnea and low testosterone, his clarity returned enough that he started shipping features again. He told me, "It's like I had an invisible hand on the brake. Taking it off didn't change my IQ. It just let me use it." Practical implication and tip. If you're battling brain fog, treat common drivers first: sleep quality, uncontrolled stress, blood sugar dysregulation, and heavy alcohol use. If those are optimized and you're still struggling, a clinical evaluation that includes morning testosterone can help identify an endocrine contributor. 4. Motivation, drive, and grit. The slow erosion of consistent effort. Stupid grit, the messy, stubborn, day-in, day-out work that wins long-term, depends on both habit and the biological backing to keep showing up. Low testosterone can blunt the internal drive to initiate effort and to persist in the face of setbacks. Over months or years, that erosion compounds. Fewer reps, fewer networking emails, fewer follow-throughs. Performance sinks not because you lack intelligence or values, but because your internal drive signal is quieter. Mechanism in plain English. Testosterone interacts with brain reward systems and stress responses. When it's lower, tasks that used to feel motivating might instead feel exhausting or not worth the risk. Motivation is not just mindset, it's biology supporting behavior. Anecdote. Think of a friend who used to be relentless about a side hustle. He sent cold emails, followed up, and showed up. Then life got busy, and his responses dwindled. He blamed time and new priorities, but when he finally had blood work, it turned out he had low testosterone combined with untreated sleep problems. After addressing lifestyle and medical contributors under guidance, his follow-through returned enough to make his side income meaningful again. His comment, "I still have the same goals, I just had lost the fuel." Practical implication and quick tip: small, consistent wins beat waiting for a complete overhaul. Use habit scaffolding. Schedule short, non-negotiable blocks of work. Set tiny targets while pursuing medical evaluation if you suspect a biological factor. Doing both, building habits and checking the biology, is how you regain momentum. 5. Mood, confidence, and social performance. The ripple effects on relationships and work. Mood swings, irritability, lowered assertiveness, and reduced interest in social engagement can all be linked to lower testosterone. Those changes affect your interpersonal performance. Negotiating, leading, asking for opportunities, and social risk-taking become harder. This is where the hormone's role bleeds into reputation and relationships, both critical components of long-term career and life success. Mechanism in plain English. Hormones influence mood regulation and social behavior. A decrease can nudge you toward withdrawal, irritability, or muted emotional expression, all of which reduce your ability to influence and connect. Anecdote. A client of mine, Dan, started getting fewer callbacks for promotions and felt his confidence evaporating in meetings. He assumed he'd lost his edge professionally. After a careful medical check that flagged no single smoking gun, but did note low normal testosterone and poor sleep, he worked with his PCP to address sleep apnea and lifestyle. Within months, his mood stabilized and his participation in meetings increased. He didn't become brash, he just regained the baseline confidence to speak up. Practical implication and tip. If your mood or social engagement has changed, don't minimize it. Mood problems have many causes: psychological, social, and biological. Address sleep, seek counseling if stress or depression are present, and discuss testosterone testing with your clinician if other lifestyle fixes haven't helped. How to self-screen and what testing actually looks like. you need a practical checklist to know when to take the next step. Here are symptoms to reflect on, not a diagnostic battery, but red flags that justify a medical conversation. Persistent low energy, reduced morning erections and libido, decreased muscle mass or strength despite training, increased body fat, worsening concentration and memory, persistent low mood or irritability, and newly reduced motivation to pursue goals. If you tick several boxes and this pattern has lasted months, that's a reason to check in with a healthcare provider. Testing basics. Clinicians generally start with a blood test called total testosterone, typically measured in the morning because levels have a daily rhythm. If that test is low or borderline, a clinician may repeat it and order additional labs, for example, measures like free testosterone, sex hormone-binding globulin, SHBG, luteinizing hormone, LH, and others to help figure out why levels are low.
Common contributing conditions include obesity, untreated sleep apnea, chronic medication use, some pain meds and steroids can lower testosterone, pituitary problems, and chronic illness. Because labs and reference ranges vary, interpretation should happen with a clinician who can correlate numbers with symptoms and make a plan. Let me say that again. Don't self-diagnose from a single morning reading or an internet chart. Symptoms plus thoughtful testing and clinical interpretation are what matter. Lifestyle changes that actually move the needle and should be your first line. Before any treatment discussions, lifestyle is the foundation. There's good evidence that these steps can raise testosterone modestly and improve performance by themselves, sometimes enough to resolve symptoms. Sleep. Aim for consistent, sufficient sleep. Chronic short or fragmented sleep suppresses testosterone. Improve sleep hygiene. Consistent wake and sleep times. Reduce screens before bed. Consider screening for sleep apnea if you snore or wake unrefreshed. Resistance training. Heavy, progressive resistance training is one of the strongest behavioral levers to support muscle mass and favorable hormonal profiles. Compelling and consistent training raises your odds of stronger, smarter gains. Weight loss. If you're carrying excess body fat, losing even a modest amount can improve testosterone and metabolic health. It's not magic, but it helps. Alcohol moderation. Regular heavy drinking negatively impacts testosterone. Cutting back, especially close to bedtime and training, can improve energy and recovery. Stress management. Chronic stress elevates cortisol and can blunt the hormonal balance that supports testosterone. Use practical stress tools, short daily walks, focused breathing, scheduling time off, or therapy if you're stuck. Nutrition. Prioritize protein and adequate calories around training days. Deficiency and chronic dieting can suppress hormones. Micronutrients matter too. A full diet with adequate vitamin D, zinc, and magnesium supports overall health. If you're deficient, correct it under medical guidance. Why lifestyle first? Because these changes improve performance directly. Better sleep, more strength, less fat, and they may raise testosterone enough that clinical treatments aren't needed. They're safe, broadly beneficial, and address many root causes that mimic low testosterone. When lifestyle isn't enough, the clinical pathway and a balanced view of TRT. Sometimes lifestyle adjustments aren't sufficient and symptoms persist with corroborating lab results. In those cases, a clinical evaluation that includes an endocrinologist or urologist may be appropriate. For some men with persistent, clinically significant low testosterone and related symptoms, testosterone replacement therapy, TRT, can improve energy, strength, and libido. But it's not a simple fix everything button, and it has trade-offs.
What to expect in a clinical evaluation? Your clinician will review your symptoms, medical history, medications, and relevant labs. They may order additional testing to search for reversible causes, sleep apnea, medication effects, pituitary problems, assess fertility goals, TRT can suppress sperm production, and review cardiovascular health. If treatment is started, it's usually accompanied by monitoring for blood counts, prostate health, and symptom response. Risks and caveats in plain terms. TRT can improve symptoms for many men, but it can also reduce sperm production and fertility, increase red blood cell counts, which may require monitoring, and interact with sleep apnea or other conditions. The long-term cardiovascular risk profile has been debated and is not fully settled across all patient groups. That's another reason treatment decisions should be individualized and monitored by a clinician. The Endocrine Society guidelines and major clinical societies emphasize careful diagnosis and shared decision-making. A note on online prescriptions and DIY approaches. Don't do it. Self-medicating with hormones, using unverified clinics, or starting injections without proper monitoring is risky. If a clinic promises easy fixes without proper testing and follow-up, treat that as a red flag. Addressing stigma, why men delay care and why that's costly. There's a cultural story that asking for help is weakness. Too many men will shrug off persistent low energy, mood changes, or cognitive slowing and tell themselves, this is aging, I'm just tired, or I'm not the kind of person who goes to the doctor. The cost of that delay is compounding lost opportunities, relationships, promotions, training consistency, and the small wins that add up to meaningful outcomes. Let others think what they want. Getting checked is pragmatic. You are not proving weakness by getting a blood test. You're collecting information so you can act. And action beats inaction. Consistency beats perfect knowledge. Start somewhere. Putting it together, a practical plan you can use now. 1. Do a reality check. Write down how you feel across energy, libido, strength, mood, and cognitive clarity. Be honest. If multiple domains are off and it's lasted months, move to step 2. 2. Optimize the basics for 8 to 12 weeks. Sleep schedule, cut heavy alcohol, start or recommit to resistance training, prioritize protein, and address stress. See if tangible improvements follow. 3. If symptoms persist, schedule a conversation with your primary care clinician. Ask about a morning testosterone test and mention the specific symptoms you're tracking. If needed, a clinician can arrange repeat labs and additional investigations. 4. If labs and symptoms line up, discuss the pros and cons of treatment options and whether referral to endocrinology or urology is appropriate. If treatment is started, ensure you have a follow-up plan for monitoring and evaluating efficacy and side effects.
Keep habits that support performance, whether or not hormones are part of the solution. They're the backbone of long-term improvement. Final reality checks and common questions. Will fixing testosterone guarantee I'll be a superstar at work? No. Testosterone is one factor among many. Environment, skills, opportunity, social capital, and luck matter. But it's a potentially fixable factor that can restore the baseline capacity to show up and do the work that generates wins. Is low testosterone always permanent? No. Sometimes it's reversible with lifestyle changes or by addressing underlying causes. Weight loss, treating sleep apnea, changing medications. Other times it's a persistent issue that needs medical management. That's why testing and follow-up matter. What about fertility if I want kids? Important point. Testosterone therapy can reduce sperm production. If you plan to have children, discuss fertility preservation and alternatives with your clinician before starting any hormonal therapy. How confident is the evidence? We have a mixture of epidemiological data, clinical trials in symptomatic men, and guideline-based recommendations from organizations like the Endocrine Society. There's nuance. Not every study points the same way, and individual results vary. That's why the careful, symptom-driven, clinician-supervised approach is the safe path. You don't have to accept lower performance as your new normal. If you've noticed creeping fatigue, shrinking strength, brain fog, dwindling motivation, or mood shifts, and they're more than temporary, those are meaningful signals. Low testosterone can be a contributor, and, if present, is often a solvable piece of the puzzle when approached sensibly. Start with lifestyle, get the right tests at the right time, and work with a clinician to interpret results and decide next steps. If this resonated, subscribe for more evidence-based health breakdowns, and talk to your primary care doctor about getting checked. It could be one of the fastest ways to get your performance back. You don't have to be stuck. Take one small step this week. Schedule the appointment, tweak your sleep, or commit to 3 resistance workouts. Momentum builds from action.